and welcome to Duality Unfolding. I am Kathy. So I have a full moon reading for you. So this reading is for the full moon in Virgo in February 2024. So the moon will be the most full on the 24th, which is a Saturday. So I have 4 different readings for you. And yeah. And I have 4 different readings for you. So I pulled a Moonology Oracle card as well as rolled one of the Astro Dice to help you choose which group that you would like to watch the reading for. So group number 1, the Astro Dice landed on Jupiter, which is the planet of expansion, good fortune. It's the ruler of Sagittarius, so Sagittarius might be an important sign to you. But here's your Moonology card. The message is bring love into the situation, new moon in Aquarius. Group number 2, your Astro Dice option is Virgo. So this full moon is in Virgo. Virgo is the ruler of health, of kind of the everyday things in our lives, work, just the things that we do in our everyday life to take care of our responsibilities. That can be, the job that we work at, the way that we take care of our own health, the way that we take care of others, just kind of a little bit more mundane everyday things that we do that we kind of overlook, or maybe that we don't pay attention to as much or put as much intention into. So the Moonology card for group number 2 is nothing will come of this situation, void of course moon. So void of course moon is just when the moon is kind of in between signs, where it's sort of traveling. It's kind of like in transition. It energetically, void of course moons can be a time when we are encouraged to take a little bit of rest, like almost like a nap. Sometimes a void of course can be as short as like 4 minutes, or it can be as long as 18, 20 hours. So group number 3, your Astro Dice option is the planet Venus. This is the planet of love, money, abundance. It's the ruler of Taurus and Libra, if those are important to you. And then your Moonology card is step out of your comfort zone, North Node. The North Node is in our astrological chart, in our natal chart. It's the direction that we're being called to move into. The North Node is, it's a mathematical point. It's not like a planet or an asteroid or anything like that. It's just it's a mathematical point that's calculated within our own chart based on the nodes of the moon, which is what the North Node and the South Node are. And then there's a North Node and South Node for all of us. So right now the North Node is in Aries, and that can be different than your personal North Node in your natal chart. And then group number 4, the Astro Dice option is Scorpio, and your Moonology card is the answers you need are coming in, full moon in Gemini. Okay. So these are your card reading options. As always, feel free to watch more than one reading and take as much time as you need. I hope this information was helpful, and I will see you guys in the readings. Hello, group number 1. So if you chose this Jupiter, Astro Dice, and the Bring Love into the Situation Moonology card, this is your reading. So I have pulled tarot cards for you as well as a number of oracle cards. So we'll look at the oracle cards. Actually, let's look at the oracle cards first. I usually do the tarot first and then the oracle cards, but let's switch it up. So the first oracle card that I have for you is from the Starseed Oracle. And the message is karmic relationships, Orion energy, polarity, soul growth, conflict. Interesting. So I feel like I feel like this might be connected to that. Let's see. Next, I have 2 Goddess Guidance Oracle cards for you. For every other group, I only picked one of each card, but you had 2 jump out for some reason, so let's see what they are. The first one is Bast with Independence. Your independence is a foundation for your strength and success. And Kuan Yin, Compassion. Release judgment about yourself and others and focus on the love and light that is within everyone. Okay, so I think I'm starting to see kind of what's going on here. We've got independence and polarity and karmic relationships, and then we've got bring love into the situation and compassion. Next is these are Wisdom for Healing cards from Carolyn Miss, if you're familiar with her. She does a lot of work with like energetic medical healing, but also a lot of work with like the archetypes. The message is visualize a healthy body and mind, which I feel like very much associates with Virgo and the Virgo energy. Virgo is kind of synonymous with the healer of the zodiac. A lot of Virgos go into like the helping fields, the service fields, like teaching, nursing, things like that, where they're helping people to heal and grow. And the message on the back, which is today's lesson, or really, the lesson for this full moon reading: visualize yourself as a completely healthy person inside and out. Do one thing that brings you closer to achieving that state. Your goal is to do whatever it takes to become the healthiest you possible. Sorry. For some reason, it was in my mind, it was the healthiest version of you, which is kind of the same thing, right? And then last, we have a second Moonology card, which is South Node. Don't let your past hold you back. Okay. So I'm feeling like, let me see, I kind of want to move some things around. I think I'm going to put this little guy here. Okay. I want to make sure that you can see all of these cards. Okay. So what I'm feeling energetically is that this is definitely a time of growth for you, not just with the Virgo energy that's coming up, but with the Jupiter planet energy that's showing up. It's Jupiter is the biggest planet in the solar system. It's energetically synonymous with expansion and growth, as well as, good fortune, which to me is associated with, as far as healing, it's associated with ease. And so with this full moon, it feels to me like you're being encouraged to heal from some of the things that happened to you in the past. And it almost feels like there's this, this kind of dichotomy, this polarity that's happening, where there's this part of you that has been almost like hyper independent, hyper vigilant, and you're really in this space where like you're seeing that your life doesn't have as much connection, compassion, kindness, like love, essentially like the energy of love is not as present in your life as you would like. And I feel like this old version of you had to be hyper vigilant, very hyper independent. Like it was very much in survival mode. Like a lot of times for people that have been through some form of trauma, trauma with a big T, we develop, myself included, like we develop this hyper independence because what we've learned from that trauma is that it's safer and easier to be by ourselves because we don't know who out there is going to hurt us, right? Like that we know that we aren't the ones that are hurting ourselves, but everybody else we're not really sure about. And so because of that, we can make choices to isolate ourselves, and I feel like that polarity energy very much is about like isolation. And there's a difference between healthy independence and hyper independence. And so healthy independence is very much like a feeling of autonomy. I feel like for a lot of us right now, like of the if you're an adult in existence right now, you have dealt with codependency in one form or another. That I feel like, this is just my opinion, that women have traditionally been socialized to be codependent, in some parts because of like legislation and laws that are in place that didn't allow women to have rights for many, many generations. But also the way that women are socialized in many cultures to be a little bit more passive, like not as assertive, like softer, quieter. And so, really kind of socializing women to be, to kind of dim their own understanding of their power. And so, what that creates is this need to have like larger support systems, so if you're part of an oppressed group, like community is much more important than if you are someone that is allowed to be autonomous and in your own power. And I feel like with social dynamics, like we can see this now where it's like there's a lot of information about how there's an epidemic of loneliness, in the elderly and in men, and also like this dichotomy in dating where there's a lot more younger women, women of childbearing age, that are opting out of relationships. I feel like it's really prominent in the hetero demographic, but I think it's also becoming more prominent like in the lesbian culture as well, the queer culture too. That those who identify as women, or women that are straight are opting out of dating because there's just there's a lot of conflict and like imbalance, and there's this polarity, right? Where like, if you are the person that is in power, then you have to be hyper independent and you have to demonstrate that you don't need anyone. But if you are the democratic, or if you're in the demographic that's oppressed, you need to have a higher quantity of support system because there's power in numbers. And so that conflict, I feel like has been kind of brewing in society for a while. I think with like social media, and then also just with technology, we're able to see kind of in more real time, like the prevalence of these kind of conflicts, like the prevalence of people that have a lot of trauma, that have essentially been conditioned through their own experiences that it's safer to be alone. Seeing in real time that there are people that are extremely lonely and disconnected, seeing that there are people that are really kind of happy by themselves, even in, like their older age. And so I feel like there's a lot of stuff that's happening in the collective. And we, being part of the collective, like we can opt out of things, right? Like maybe we have decided that we want to opt out of marriage, that's not something that, feels in alignment for us. Like it feels like something that's very much legal and has nothing to do with love. And maybe we want our friend or our relationships and our friendships and, our intimate relationships to be rooted much more in the energy of love than in like legislation and like laws, or religion or whatever kind of dogmatic, structured, social norms that we've been taught. And we can also decide, which I feel like is where you are, that as a human being, like you want to have a variety of relational experiences, and that you're learning and you have learned that like the love that you were taught about when you were young, like especially if you're part of like the older Disney generation where it's like, every princess needs a prince to save them, and like that's true love. which it's not. That we get to determine what love is for us. And I feel like with this full moon, you're going to be releasing a lot of this old stuff, like these kind of old karmic patterns, about like around like the way that things are supposed to be, or like what you were taught like love is, or that relationships look like all these things that I think you're going to be releasing a lot of things that were part of like the social programming that we all pick up, but also that aren't in alignment for like who you are, and like they're not in alignment with like how you feel love in your heart and your body and your mind, in your kind of essence. And really like you're closing out this chapter on like this kind of old part of your life, and I feel like there were many lessons that you had to learn, like, because I feel like everything happens for us to grow and learn, and that even the hardest things that happen to us are for our best and highest good. That it's very much like opposite to like the mindset that like, why do bad things happen to good people? It's like bad things happen to everybody, and we all have like free will, and we all have choice in how we choose to interact with those things that happen to us, how we choose to reflect on those things that happen to us, how we choose to move through those things that happen to us. And that like we're all on our own journey, right? So there are things that happen to people that are really terrible and painful, and then we can see from the outside that like, oh, they're doing that thing again, and they're doing that thing again, and they're doing that thing again, and like we can judge, I guess like if it makes you feel better. But I think that sometimes we go through lessons, and we go through like different versions of that lesson, because there are things that like we're still learning, right? Like I feel like we can, like I feel like I haven't heard in a long time, but a couple years ago, people were kind of like in memes, like they were talking about how like, are you someone that dates the same person just with a different face, right? Where it's not necessarily like you have a type, but it's like for me, this is kind of personal, but in my like early 20s and even like late teens, like I dated and married one of them, like essentially like the same person, like like I got married and got divorced, and then after that I dated really the same kind of person, and they all had addictions. And I come from a family where like one of my parents is is an alcoholic, and so like that addiction, like learning what addiction looks like and how I operate in addiction, and like learning that there are things that come with addiction, as far as like a person's personality and maybe some of their own traumas and some of their behaviors. Like I had to go through that, because that was very much like a deprogramming for me, right? So I'm sure that and I even do it sometimes too, where I look back on like people that I dated when I was like a lot younger, and I wasn't aware of what my own stuff was. I wasn't able to understand like other people's stuff. And there is still this part of me that's like, oh my gosh, like I was so dumb. But this wiser part of me that's able to kind of zoom out and look at it is like, well, actually, like how else were you supposed to like deprogram the thing that is like this big part of like your family unit that you grew up in, right? Because like it almost makes me think of, and this is a really extreme example, but it almost makes me think of like people that are in cults, and like when like they get like when their family or whoever gets them to leave the cult, or even if they like kind of remove them from this cult and they have to like deprogram this person, like trying to like essentially teach them how to unlearn the things that they learned in this cult, like with this brainwashing that happened to them, like learning that that wasn't true or learning a different way. It takes a really long time. And I think that, anybody that's tried to change a habit, right? Like if you have tried to quit smoking, if you've tried to start working out after a really long time, you try to change your diet, it's so hard. Maybe it's just me, because I love sugar. And that's my drug. But like when we when we're born into something, or we have something really traumatic happen to us, like the survival part of us kicks in and is like, nope, this is how it has to be moving forward. Like, this is the only way. We have to be hyper vigilant. That's the only way that we will be safe. And we can't trust anyone in the world. But I feel like what's happening is, like, over time, you've had experiences, and like your higher self has kind of been trying to really subtly like work with you to kind of help you kind of bump up against those like old beliefs, right? So maybe one of those old beliefs from your past is that like it's not safe to trust people. And then like your wiser self is like, well, what about your best friend of 20 years? What about this coworker that like you've known for 10 years that has always been really kind to you? What about, this other relationship? Like, what about this person? What about this? And that deprogramming takes a really long time. And so I feel like you're at this point where like you have been listening to your higher self for quite a while, or you've been aware that there's this, I don't know that you're aware that it's your higher self, but like you're very aware of like the deprogramming efforts that come up when your old beliefs come up, right? So maybe there's this part of you that's like, I'm not good at relationships, and like I'm never going to meet someone that wants to be in a long-term relationship with me. And then your brain comes up and is like, actually, these are all of the really healthy long-term relationships that you've had, and maybe they don't look like your romantic relationship, but your brain is telling you, like, this old stuff is telling you that you'll never have a long-term relationship, but you actually have all of these really beautiful long-term relationships. And so that is starting to, or it has been changing you, right? And so seeing evidence in your life for how these old beliefs that are associated with like childhood trauma, like the old version of you, like seeing this evidence that contradicts that is helping you to let go of it. And I feel like this full moon is really going to illuminate a lot of that for you. And part of it feels like you might start seeing the world differently. You might start seeing people differently. And, I think it's almost like this cracking open, right? Where it's like there's this part of you that's like becoming more open to meeting new people, letting new people in, interacting with new people. And I think a big part of that is that you have learned what it means to be independent and autonomous versus like hyper independent. I feel like hyper independence is very much associated with like hyper vigilance. Like hyper independence is connected to like that survival instinct, that need to survive, like that fear, like the fear body flaring up. And so independence is this understanding that like just you inherently are strong, that you inherently like on your own, with your own gifts, with your own talents, with your own abilities, with your own knowledge, are able to succeed. And so especially like I feel like the imagery of this is so powerful because she's just standing here with her arms wide open, like heart center, kind of forward and raised and arms open. Like there's no fear, right? When we are very comfortable, when we're autonomous, when we feel safe, we're able to stand in this posture. And so I feel like this is where you're going. This is the direction that you're going. And so if you're into like visioning or doing a vision board, or even just like journaling, maybe even meditation, I would very, very much encourage you or invite you to do some visioning, around the full moon. Like I said, it's Saturday. I want to say like late Friday, maybe even early Sunday. Like it's still going to be pretty full, but the full moon is on Saturday, the 24th of February. So, I would encourage you to just allow yourself to visualize like what your life looks like when your body and your mind are most healthy. And for some of us, like that kind of brings up like, okay, when like my mind is healthy, like my mental health is good. And when my mental health is good, I laugh a lot more. So maybe I enjoy watching funny shows or like stand-up comedy, or like hanging out with this one friend that like just we always laugh and like cut up. For some of you it might be like, I don't know how to get my mental health on track because I don't know how to do that by myself, and maybe you're gonna seek out like some self-help books or like therapy or whatever you have access to. And then as far as like a healthy body, that can be as simple as like posture and just how you carry yourself. It can be, taking walks in nature. It can be even just like grounding, like standing outside with no shoes on and like really feeling the earth under your feet, whether that's like grass or concrete. Or if you are in, like if you're really hardcore into grounding, you have like a grounding mat. But that Virgo energy of the full moon is earth energy. So it's, it's associated with the earth, with the ground, with grounding, with stability. And that over time, like as you're growing in your autonomy and your recognition that you yourself, by yourself, just inherently, because you are here and you have survived the things that you've survived, like it's safe for you to be an autonomous person, like that you have sovereignty over yourself, that you have the wisdom and the power and the capability to make all the best decisions for you. Essentially, like it's this level of self-trust, like trusting yourself, trusting who you have become, to trusting that person to make those good decisions for you because they've been making them and maybe you just haven't seen it. And that's okay. Like full moons are a time of illumination. They help us to see things that are kind of hidden in the dark. And as you, kind of become more comfortable in your own power, what's going to happen is like your heart's going to open and soften, just to people in general, that you're going to be able to become much more compassionate towards people, that the things that people do like won't bother you in the same way they used to in the past, because you understand that those things have nothing to do with you, even when they are directed at you. That, sometimes people can say things to us that are really cruel and hurtful. And when we've like grown and changed, what we can recognize is that like people will project things onto other people, and sometimes they're not aware of it. Sometimes they are not aware, just like that saying, like taking our own advice, that sometimes we'll tell people things, we'll give people advice that really is meant for us. We just aren't open to hearing it. We aren't open to receiving it, even though it's already inside us. And that like when you learn how to trust yourself and you recognize your own sovereignty, like whatever other people say or do to you, or say about you, it doesn't affect you because you know who you are. And like somebody else's opinion of you doesn't matter. Like who you are and who you aren't. And, when those kind of outside messages come in, you can filter them through that knowing, and the things that don't align with who you are and who you aren't, kind of just fall away. It's like not valid, right? It's kind of like if we know that somebody is colorblind, like we're not going to ask them to help us like match our, shirt and pants, because they don't have like, they don't have an accurate view of like color, right? And like, not to judge them, but like we understand like, okay, this person is at a deficit. So like, why am I going to take their advice regarding something that they are at a deficit in? It's kind of like if somebody that has no musical talent tells you that like you're not a very good piano player. And it's like, oh, okay, cool. Like, well, when did you learn to play piano? Oh, you don't? Oh, okay, cool. Thanks for your unsolicited feedback. I feel like that's like where autonomy and self-trust are like so important, that like they help you to kind of see when things are being kind of directed at you that have nothing to do with you. And as you continue to like grow in that compassion, especially for yourself, but also for others, like it's just, I feel like it's just going to bring like a lot of ease into your life, and that you're going to be bringing love into like new areas of your life that you hadn't before. So kind of areas that's like, that aren't conventional areas, like maybe bringing love into your workout, right? Like choosing exercises that are much more loving for yourself, or just kind of being compassionate with like other people that are, you know, like working out, or like if people, you know, like let's say that you're somebody that's like super fit and people are always like kind of coming up to you or asking questions, like maybe before like it was really irritating because like you're trying to get your workout in and like you only have so much time. And I think once you go through the shift, like what you're gonna see is that like, you know, sometimes people just want to connect and they don't know how, or that like it takes a lot of courage for people to ask for you to, you know, maybe give them some advice on their form, or ask you to like spot them, because maybe they know that they're interrupting you, but they also, you know, like they don't want to get hurt, and maybe like they can tell you know what you're doing, right? So I feel like you're gonna kind of go through like almost like this softening in a way, and that like that energetic shift of you like bringing love into like different situations, like maybe where you work, or like when you're driving or grocery shopping. It's, I feel like it's going to be, you know, any of those kind of Virgoan, like kind of mundane everyday interactions in our life that we don't really intentionally focus on. Like that's where you're going to be bring love in, and, or maybe be more loving during. But I feel like that's really going to expand like the amount of connections that you have, you know, that like you're, because you're kind of radiating this love energy, because like you're secure in yourself, and like it's making you much more compassionate. Like you're gonna start to like make a lot more acquaintances, you know, and that like this is just kind of the universe's way of giving you like more evidence, you know, to kind of let go of that old mindset that like, you know, it's hard to make friends, or you can't trust anybody, or people are jerks, or, you know, any of those things around connection. I think that we all have, you know, like those kind of negative beliefs about, you know, disconnection, really, that we all have, that I think have kind of gotten harder during, you know, COVID, like during the pandemic when we were separated, and like we haven't really fully recovered from that. And I think that like I don't feel like there's a lot of people in your life that are living in this energy. I feel like there's a lot more people in your life that are living this energy, and it's almost like you're going to be kind of a guide for them, you know, that like while you're doing these things to heal your own belief systems, like the consequence is that other people are going to learn from your example that like, oh, people aren't as bad as the news tells me, or people aren't as bad as the ones that I've interacted with in the past, or like, oh, I really do have the power to implement my own boundaries and like decide if I want to just be friends with someone or if I want to date them. Like it's gonna have like this really huge ripple effect. And so I know consequence is kind of a weird word to use in that context, but that was very loudly the word that came through. And it feels like it is a consequence to all the, it's a consequence from the perspective of all the separation energy that is in the world right now, you know, that you're moving towards this like love and connection energy, and also like kind of showing that like love and connection isn't just romantic, that like we can have like deep healthy friendships, you know, that we can have like really lovely connections with people that are only our acquaintances, you know, that we can have like fulfilling connective interactions with people that are just kind of sprinkled throughout our life, that relationships are not an all or nothing, right? You're learning this kind of spectrum of connection, that like you you don't have to know people to like chit chat with them for 15 minutes. And also that like you can have people that, you know, you maybe, to go back to the gym analogy, like you see at the gym, like maybe once a week, like that's the day that you guys happen to work out at the same time, and you guys like chit chat about sports or cars or like some hobby that you have in common, and that's a really lovely interaction. And then that's all it is, right? That's like your gym buddy. And that like kind of unlearning that relationships have to look like this, and love has to look like this, and that friends have to look like this, and that people have to fit these categories. Like I feel like there's a lot of old paradigm socialized relational junk that is just kind of being flushed out, which I feel like is really beautiful. And we haven't even gotten into the tarot. So let's do that. Let's see what is coming through for you. Okay. So, yeah, Chariot, big, you're being carried somewhere. So, the Chariot card is about movement. It's about, I feel like the Chariot card is the Uber of the universe, right? Where the universe is like, hey, get in, loser, we're going healing. Like there's a picture of, this charioteer, but the card is called the Chariot. So the card is about the energy of the thing that's taking you somewhere. And that, we've got these two figures. I don't know what they are, like lions or magical, I don't know. Sometimes they're horses. But these two are pulling the chariot. And we've got this very balanced, like dark and light. So it's, I feel like that's the divine, right? That like this is the universe's Uber that's coming to pick you up, to take you somewhere. Like this charioteer is not holding any kind of reins. They're holding this kind of scepter thing, and they're kind of holding on, but they're not guiding the chariot. So I feel like it's very kind of divine. The next part of this, like this 5 of Cups and then this 3 of Swords, like these are cards of grief. So when we look at these are cards of sadness. This person is, they're very much focused on these 3 cups that have spilled. They've got this dark robe on, the head is down, sky is dark, but behind them are these 2, really positive remnants. That like, yes, there were 3 cups that spilled. There are things that we've lost, but we still have 2, and there's only one of us, right? There's only one figure. So one person with 2 cups, that's abundance. That's one more cup than you need, and that sometimes we can get lost in that grieving energy and that heavy energy. But, it's important to go through that grieving process so that you can come into the healing, right? Because until we can really acknowledge and like sit with the feelings of loss that come up, then we can't get to the point where we're ready to kind of take these swords out and start to heal. This is a card of disappointment. And I think that like the hard energy that you're feeling around this is, I think there's a little bit of regret, and it's not regret at losing someone. I think it is this very kind of like normal human thing when we realize that like we could have been living a different way. And that like there's regret that we didn't get here sooner. And so I would encourage you to be compassionate with yourself, because in my opinion, we get there when we're ready. And that, sometimes we can get lost in this grieving, right? Like we can get lost in those like heavy feelings of being kind of pulled down into the sadness and the darkness and the grief. But eventually like we have to come up for air, right? It's like if it's a deep dive, like we're diving down to the bottom of the ocean, and we can only go so deep before we have to come back up and get air. And so it feels like even if you were here for years, for a long time, when you when you were ready, I was going to say when you are ready, but I feel like this has already happened. When you were ready, like you came up for air, and it almost feels like, if you've ever like held your breath for a really long time, or if you've ever done any kind of like swimming or diving and you're down there too long and you finally come up, or if you've even seen it in a movie, like when people surface, how there's like this huge inhale. And I feel like, when you come up out of that like dark, heavy place and you have this huge inhale, like that's the feelings, right? Like that's when, we can feel all of like that kind of hurt and pain kind of flush away, because you spent so long with this that it's like once you surface, then it's like you come up and these swords kind of blast out of you. Yeah. And like the disappointment, the heartache around this is around, it's almost like the disappointment hits, the heartache hits, and then there's a big emotional release. And it has to do with like all this hard stuff that you went through, that like not sometimes, like we live in a society and we're kind of taught that like, when hard things happen, you just kind of muscle through it, put your head down, just charge forward. And that like, you can't just like give up. You can't just stop and be sad because there's things to do all the time. Like you have to go to work, you have to feed your kids, you have to clean your house, like you have to feed yourself, all these things. But really like the reality of it is that, like the mundane parts of life never stop. We just do it in this energy because that's all we can do, right? That like sometimes we have to like grieve and clean our house. We have to like grieve and feed our kids. We have to grieve and like drive to work. We have to grieve and like make that Excel spreadsheet or whatever it is that you do, and that there's not, many of us don't have the luxury to like stop and grieve. Like we can't just be like, I need 2 weeks to just like be really sad and process this and like heal from my heartache, and then I will be back to work on that Excel spreadsheet. Like life doesn't really work that way, and a lot of people don't have that luxury. And so I feel like that those feelings of like regret and disappointment that come up, it's like this kind of final fleshing out, and it's really around like how you allowed yourself to live kind of like hurt and wounded for so long. And the regret is that like you weren't living in this like connective, loving energy more. That it's like once you get to this place where you learn how to do this, like there is going to be a little bit of like, man, I should have been doing this forever. And so again, I would encourage you to be compassionate with yourself, because you couldn't have been doing this forever because you just learned it. Like you were just at a place where you were able to process your grief and release those big feelings and come up to the surface for air and move forward. So it's like our brains can tell us like, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. And it's like, well, if you knew how to do that before, you would have done it. And like when we should ourselves around things that we were supposed to do that we didn't do, I feel like a lot of times there's this huge learning element to it, right? That like sometimes we make bad choices because we kind of need to learn, that like, okay, this works for everybody else, this doesn't work for me. And then there's other times where like we reflect back on the bad choices we've made and we kind of criticize that version of ourselves from the version of who we are now that knows better, but we criticize that past version that didn't know, but we talk to them like they should have known. And it's like, that's not fair. You know what I mean? It's like, you would never expect like a 4th grade student to learn how to do taxes, or know how to file taxes just because they know how to like add and multiply and subtract, and I think that we do that to ourselves. So be nice to you. Be nice to my friend, group number 1. So the energy that we have coming up is this Ace of Wands, and so this is a new beginning that's coming, that like the universe is kind of taking you, like as we go through this journey of like of this healing, the next, you know, after the healing, we come to this new beginning, this new really like way of being, way of living. It almost feels to me like oops. It almost feels to me like when a snake sheds its skin, you know, that like you kind of have been sloughing off all this old stuff and that you're coming into being kind of a little shiny, bright green grass snake. Or maybe like a really, you know, really badass rattlesnake or whatever kind of snake you want to be. I'm a big fan of little grass snakes because I feel like they're super cute. But you're coming into this new chapter, and like this Knight of Swords is really like you're ready. You're ready to just go towards this. The Knight of Swords is the fastest moving knight in the deck. Knights are about taking action, and we can see like this horse is running, and he's almost like look at his little eyeball. He's like, "Are you sure we're supposed to run this fast?" And you're like, "Yes, let's go." You're going towards this really positive like new beginning that the universe is offering you. And I feel like for some of you, this could be a really passionate relationship that you're coming into, something very different than you've ever experienced in relationship before, like romantic. For others of you, this is just kind of a new way of like operating in the world, a new way of living, a new way of being. Like this can be taking on like a new habit. For some of you, this is going to be like applying for a new job, even changing like the field of work that you work in. And it's something that like you're really excited about. So starting a new hobby that just really lights you up, moving into a new career field that like you have a huge passion for, that is gonna, you know, you're gonna be very successful at it. And then for some of you, it's a love relationship, you know, where lots of fireworks, and it just feels very spicy in the best way. You know, like a lot of really intense fun, playful chemistry. Yeah, very different than anything you've experienced before. So very healthy, very positive. So yeah, group number 1, that has been your full moon in Virgo tarot reading. So I hope that you enjoyed this reading. I hope that you will be kind to yourself, you know, as you kind of grieve and release some of this old stuff. Like it takes time to let go of like these old belief systems, and our brains can tell us like we're ready to do it like right now, we want to do it yesterday. And you know, our fear body, our energetic body, our physical body takes a little bit longer to process all that stuff, and we hold a lot of those, you know, emotions and that trauma like in our bodies. So I just want to encourage you to be kind to yourself, you know. And again, like this visualization, you know, might be something that's really helpful for you to engage in for the full moon on the 24th, and just kind of visualize like what your healthiest you know, kind of looks like, feels like, what they do, how they operate in the world. But yeah, I just want to say thank you so much for letting me read cards for you. I really enjoyed this, and I hope that you did too. So if you enjoyed the reading, I would love it if you would like and subscribe. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Happy full moon. Hello, group number 2. So if you chose this Virgo Astro Dice and the Moonology card, Nothing Will Come of This Situation, this is your card reading. So I pulled some tarot cards for you from the Tarot Mucha deck, as well as some oracle cards. So we'll look at the oracle cards first. Put this over here. So the first one is from the Starseed Oracle, and the message is perspective. None of this matters. Zoom out, common ground. Very interesting that you're you're getting the same. I don't know why this is funny to. It's funny to me because I just think it's so magical and weird that, you know, you can pull cards from different decks and that they can have very similar messages when they're written by different people that are not connected, that are published at different times, that actually kind of aren't even from the same country. So just very fun. But yeah, perspective, none of this matters. Zoom out, common ground. Nothing will come of this situation. So I don't know what situation is coming to mind for you. There might be something that you're worried about. And whatever that thing is, that situation is that you're worried about, very strong messages around like, zooming out, just taking a break. Like I said in the intro, that void of course moon is, it's a time when the moon is kind of outside of like the normal orbit. So it's not in a sign. And it's almost like the moon isn't on, it's not on a course. And so it's kind of taking a break. So like we're encouraged to take a break, to zoom out, I'm interested to see the tarot cards that come out for this, but very interesting. Next is this Goddess Guidance Oracle. And the goddess is Arakura, a message of blossoming. You are just getting started, so have patience with yourself in the process and do not give up. Okay. Next, we have this Wisdom for Healing card. Notice subtle changes, and the message on the back is color is power. Select a color you don't normally wear and introduce that into your wardrobe. This changes the energy in your field, including your sense of self. Your goal is to discover how subtle changes can increase or decrease your comfort level. Okay. And then I have a second Moonology card for you, and it is Full Moon in Sagittarius. Look at the bigger picture. Very interesting. Okay. So it almost feels like, sorry. It almost feels like I feel like there's almost like there's two messages here, where the first one is, I feel like there's an order to these, right? And so it almost feels like this void of course, yep. This void of course moon, this first card is saying, hey, just pause. Hold on. This like nothing's happening right now. Like nothing's going to come of the situation because this is a hard stop. Hard stop. Okay, I need you to zoom out. I want you to get some perspective. This is not a big deal. And I mean that in the most non-minimalizing way. But let's zoom out and then let's look at the bigger picture. Because I feel like there's something that has been taking up a lot of your headspace. Like there's something that's been, it feels heavy and it feels like worry, and it feels almost like it might be a mental spiral, right? Like you might be kind of spun up in some like anxious energy, like in reaction to something happening. You might be worrying about something that there's not any like factual basis for. And as like an anxious person, I totally get that. I've been there many times, so I'm definitely not judging you. But it feels like spirit, God's source spirit is saying like, hey, whoa. Like you're in a spiral, and it's almost like they're trying to like yank you out. And it makes me think of, so I have anxiety and depression, which is like, I think a lot of people have that. It's like these like fun party twins that it's not fun. There's no party. There's no depression, anxiety party. It's not my favorite, but it's, it is what it is. When I first got diagnosed with, kind of severe depression, like I had gone through some really difficult things. Like I had moved overseas and like went through a really terrible breakup with someone that was presenting with like bipolar disorder, and they were an addict. So it was just like it was really bad. It was really bad. And so I would get into these like really negative downward spirals. I would have crying spells and like I couldn't pull myself out of it because I didn't know that I had not learned how to self-soothe. And like, I was in my like late 20s, right? I didn't know what was going on. I was just a hot mess. And so one of the things that my therapist at the time had taught me was like, I have to learn how to pull myself out of it. And like, you use your body to do that. And so it was like in the times that, because I was aware enough that I recognized that like, okay, I'm really sad and upset, but like I'm almost making myself more upset by continuing to be upset. So it was like this weird loop that I was getting caught in. And so the thing that she told me was to, get a bowl of ice and put water in it and just like stick my hands in it. And if it was really bad, to like take the ice water and like put it on my face, because essentially what it was doing, it was kind of like a hard reboot on a computer, right? Where it's like if the computer's frozen and you just hit the power button, it shuts everything down. And like the ice cold water is like a shock to my system, right? So it's like my brain is no longer able to like run whatever narrative it was running that was making me like so upset and sad, because my body was like, what is going on? like why is everything so cold right now? Like what's happening? And it like would pull me out of it, and so like there were times that times that maybe I was at work and it was like I couldn't be sad, or I had to like pull myself out of it, and I would go to the bathroom and like run ice cold water on my wrist to just kind of get myself out of that headspace. And so I feel like I say all that because I feel like this is what Spirit is doing with you for this full moon. That they, Spirit's like, hey, it's hold on, like we're really upset about something. We don't need to be upset. And like, hey, like, come on, like let's go to the freezer and get some ice and put it in a bowl and like stick our hands in. Okay, that's not working. We're gonna splash some water on our face so that we can really zoom out from these feelings, or zoom out from this fear, or zoom out from whatever has really been kind of consuming you. Because I feel like it's almost like sorry, this is a really weird analogy. It's like if you have a small dog and you put a big blanket and you just lay it on top of them and they can't find their way out. Like that's kind of how it feels. Like that's the level of consumption of this, that like you're a little tiny baby dog and it's like a big comforter that's on you, and like any way that you turn, like you can't find your way out of it, right? And like it's not like being in a maze where you're like, okay, I came in one way, so I'm eventually going to find my way out. It's like a blanket that's just covered you, and it's like, who put this blanket on me? And instead of trying to figure it out, it's like you get so consumed and upset because it's everywhere that you look. And it's like, I don't know when this happened. I don't know how I got myself in here, and I don't know how to get myself out. And so I feel like this full moon is really bringing a big shift for you. Like it's bringing like a really, really hard stop energy. Like that there is something that maybe you've been kind of plugging away on, something you've been like focused on, hyper focused on, something you've been like caught up in. And there is going to be something that this full moon energy is bringing that is going to be a hard stop. So it's almost like, another dog analogy. It feels like, when people have those retractable leashes and like the dog takes off and they push the button and it like pulls, the dog kind of gets jerked and they kind of snap out of whatever mindset they were in when they were chasing whatever they were chasing, and they just kind of stop and like, whoa, what choked me? What's happening? It feels like that. It's going to feel very sudden, and I feel like you're going to feel it in your body. And so it almost, for some of you, like you're going to be having a conversation with someone and it feels like they say something and they're not even talking about whatever your situation is. It's just like a random conversation, but whatever they say, it's going to hit you. Like you're going to feel it, like it's going to feel like a weight on your chest, because like those words are just going to be like the thing that like it clicks in your mind and your body is like, and done. Like, nope, we are done. We're not doing this anymore. Some of you, this might be a connection that you're in, right? Where it's like you might be interacting with this person and you just feel it in your body where it's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done. I am all the way done. I think for some of you, this is going to be unexpected. For all of you, it's going to be for your highest good, because that's the way that the universe works. There's something that you were investing in. There's something you were following. There's something that like you were doing, that you were planning, that you were going down a path for. And for whatever reason, God Source Spirit has decided that we have to make a hard left, that like this is not the path. And I feel like it's very much like divine protection, that there's something down the road that you can't see. There's someone that's come into the picture. There's some kind of new energy that's come into this, or that's crossed your path, or like kind of gotten in the stream of the energy flow that you're going on. And God's Source Spirit is like, nope, we are going this way. Like it's going to be like group number 2, we cannot, nope, that's not good for you. That's not good for anybody. That's not beneficial. Like that's not for your highest good. So we got to kick it over here. And so I feel like after this kind of big shift, this hard stop, this hard left energy, what you're going to realize is that you're on the start of something new. And that like, I think the mention of like colors and clothing for some of you, I feel like it has to do with fashion, that like you're making choices about like a different way that like you dress, or your aesthetic. Some of you are going into a different field of like aesthetics. Some of you are having like kind of like a Kundalini awakening, where like your energy is very much connected to like colors. That like, and you might start working with crystals, you might start working with the chakras, like, you might just start making art. And it feels like it's going to be like a very like gentle unfolding, because this notice subtle changes and then the blossoming and like getting started. It really feels like, the way that like if you look at like the time-lapse videos of like roses blooming or just any kind of flower unfolding, like it happens in like this really gentle, beautiful process. And, because it's time-lapse, you can see it in like 30 seconds, but in real time, like if you have ever had a garden, or even if you just like buy flowers, over time, like you can see how like they change. And I feel like this is the universe like really tenderly kind of, it's almost like whatever this is, like this situation, it's almost like the universe is like the claw that comes down and like snatches you up, and like it just kind of places you down here. So it makes me think of like Toy Story with like the claw toys, or the toys in the claw thing. And that like you're getting pulled out of this like really chaotic claw machine, and you're getting put into this new place that like, maybe you're not the toy that like a chaotic like 10-year-old boy has, but like you're like you're a toy on a desk. Like nobody messes with you, and you just kind of get to be. And so I feel like you're getting pulled out of this really chaotic energy and kind of placed down into this really gentle, nurturing. It's almost like it feels like a bubble, where it's like it feels like the universe is like, and no, we're taking you out of this chaos, and like I'm just gonna put group number 2 in this really beautiful little bubble, and you get to make your little arts, and you get to pick out, design your little clothes, and like do your little things, which are not little. Like I don't mean little like in a patronizing way. It's like little like delights, like just like group number 2, just go have fun, do the things, and I'm gonna make this bubble around you and protect you, and like you go live your most joyful, delightful life and like go. Okay. Like it kind of feels like the universe is using like this really protective like parenting energy. And it's really beautiful. It's very beautiful. I love it. So let's see what's in your tarot. Okay. Okay. So we got a couple reversals. We got these all upright. Let's see. Okay. So, I I like that this pentacle energy is matching, and I like that all this wands energy is matching. So we've got this three of coins reversed, and so the three of coins in the upright is a card of mastery. It's also a card of collaboration. In this card, we can see that like this person is, the master. Like they might be the master architect. Excuse me. They might be the master architect. And then we have this other person that's like doing the work. And then we have this third person that is, I'm not sure what they're doing. They're like kind of there, but they're kind of like, we don't see any like personification of them. And because it's reversed, I feel like you have been working or kind of under the thumb of someone that, this person is the master, right? Like, so maybe this is a mentor or a boss or somebody, but like you're doing all the work. That yes, like they know, they have the knowledge and maybe they're teaching you things, but really it's like you're doing all the work. This isn't like a collaborative energy. And so what it feels like to me is that you are not aware that you have become a master. Like it's almost like this is a lot of like brain energy, a lot of mind energy. Mercury is ruled by Mercury. Virgo is ruled by Mercury. Mercury rules the mind, communication, short distance travel, like speaking, writing, mindset, like mental energy. And so it feels like you're getting pulled out of this, whatever this chaos is, because you've mastered this. You don't need to be here anymore. You've learned the lesson. And so like during this unfolding that happens, you're going to learn that you don't need to be taught anymore. You have absorbed all of the wisdom that this person has for you, and now you're ready to just kind of do this by yourself, like kind of covering covering that. Like you're able to do this all on your own, because really you have been for a while. Like these two people aren't helping you. Like this guy is kind of looking at he's kind of looking at the plan we can see here. He's like looking at like, okay, this is what it's supposed to look like, but who's doing the work? You are. And so this, especially with this mastery card being in reverse, like you haven't realized that you've already mastered this. You don't need to learn anymore. And so I feel like that's what the removal is, that like, okay, you've learned everything you need to learn in this situation. So let me take you out and like, let's start something new. We're going to do something new. Now you can create your own art. You can make your own designs. You can, sculpt and build your own buildings and cathedrals and magical things. And with these two cards, like this 10 of wands is doing too much. Like she's carrying too many things. She's doing too much. And that to me feels like this chaotic situation, that like you've been doing too much for too long and you're exhausted, you're worn out. You've been working too hard for someone else, and the universe is like, nope. And let me put you in this little gentle place where you can kind of take a breather and take a look at things and figure out like, what do I really want to do? Like what I have the whole wide world at my disposal. Like I have my whole life ahead of me. You might be graduating from college. You might be graduating from an internship. You might be completing some big project. And like you have all these new things ahead of you. And like, what is it that you would like to do? You get to decide. And so I love that we have the 3 energy here, right? Where it's like we're unsure if we are the master of something, and then we get yanked out of that situation, and it's like, oh, let's flip this upright, that like I can do whatever I want. I have all the experience and the wisdom and the knowledge and the tangible skills. And now I realize it because I've been yanked out of there. And what is it that I want? What do I want to create? What do I want to do? What do I want? And next is this, King of Wands energy. And so the King of Wands is this very, very secure kind of state of being. Like you know who you are, you know what you're capable of, you know how to make things happen, you know when to take action and when not to take action. And instead of being hyper reactive, because I feel like there's a lot of hyper reactivity in here, like that kind of anxious, chaotic energy. Like instead of being hyper reactive, like you get to observe and then choose what you want to engage in. It's like, going from kind of thinking about, well, what do I want to do? Like, what do I want to do? And like, okay, I've decided, and like, let me make a plan, and then waiting for the right time to take action on that plan. And I feel like to go back to this kind of gentle unfolding energy, I feel like that's this 8 of Pentacles in reverse, right? In the upright, this person's just working, right? They're working. They're just making all the things. Like, we've got this matching energy, right? Very similar, same tools, same kind of creation, these pentacles. And so instead of just laboring away, what's going to happen when you're in this kind of unfolding, blossoming energy is that like you will get to be very intentional about what work you do. Like instead of just having to do the work that like these people tell you to do, it's like, you're exhausted, you get pulled into this new situation that gives you time, space, energy to really subtly, gently unfold. You get to figure out what it is that you want to do. And then you decide what to implement and what not to implement, so that when you are doing your work, it is intentional, it's appreciated, it's valued, it has a really high return on investment. Like this, I mean, come on. This is so good. I feel like this is really like living the dream, right? That it feels very strongly to me like work. Well, no, like career, that like, like you might be moving into like an entrepreneurial space. You might be, you might just be creating a whole new life for yourself, right? Like this energy, like this doesn't have to necessarily be work, because the wands are about like energy, creation, passion, drive, motivation, fire energy, and the pentacles are the tangible, right? Like resources, money, time, creating tangible things. So this is really the energy of like having the fire, the passion, the drive to create the things, the life, the career, whatever it is that you want. Yeah. And so this, like if this doesn't resonate for you as like a career reading, this is just life in general. Like you're creating the life that you want, that this full moon that's coming up on the 24th is pulling you. There's going to be a realization of a hard stop around not needing to continue to labor away under someone else, and that could be following someone else's guidance, like being told what to do, doing too much for no reason, wasting your time and energy on things that don't have a good enough payout for you, that don't have a high enough return on investment of your time and energy, and being, moving into being guided into this kind of, let me move these around, being guided into, this really positive, beautiful, gentle unfolding of creating a new life where you get to manage your time, energy, and money. You get to decide what you do and don't do. And everything that you do is intentional, and it has a guaranteed return on it, because you have that wisdom, skill, and talent, because you've mastered this thing, like because you have this level of mastery, that whatever it is that you plan, whatever it is you take action on, there is a guarantee high quality product that comes out of it, because you have the time, energy, and resources to make these really amazing things, make this really amazing life, provide this really amazing service, product, you name it. Yeah, this is so good. And I even like that there's 2 here and 3 here and 3 here and 2 here. It's like it's so balanced that it just I just love it. I love it. Yeah, so group number 2, I hope that you enjoyed this reading as much as I obviously enjoyed doing this reading for you. It's such a good, it feels so good. It feels so good. Because I feel like, the astrology of this year 2024, like with Pluto moving into Aquarius, Pluto is, the planet of power and death and rebirth, so those are like the 2 big themes, like power and then kind of endings and beginnings, death and rebirth. And then Pluto is in Aquarius. Aquarius is the people, so it's like power to the people, or like ending and starting things from the perspective of what works for the people, not what works for the corporations, not what works for the patriarchy and the old way, but like what is best for the people, the individuals, like the collective that don't hold all the power and money. So, yeah, group number 2. I hope that you enjoyed the reading. If you did, I would love it if you would like and subscribe. But again, I just want to say thank you for letting me read cards for you. And I hope that you have a beautiful full moon, and I will see you next time. Bye. Hello, group number 3. So if you chose this Venus Astro Dice and this North Node Step Out of Your Comfort Zone card, this is your reading. So I have tarot cards for you as well as some oracle cards. So let's look at these oracle cards first. The first card is from the Starseed Oracle, and the message is deep cellular healing, Arcturus energy, physical and emotional healing. Like that. Move that one over. Next is the Goddess Guidance Oracle card, and the message is Sekhmet, be strong. You are stronger than you think you are, and your strength assures a happy outcome. Next we have this Wisdom for Healing card. The message is break negative habits. And the lesson is be cognizant of one negative practice you engage in that causes you to lose power, and work on changing that situation. This could be thinking negative thoughts, overeating, or being constantly late. Your goal is to recognize that modifying or releasing unproductive habits can be challenging and even unpleasant, but it's essential that you do so. Actually, let me flip that over. And then I have another Moonology card for you, and the message is show the world the real you, full moon in Aquarius. Okay. So I feel like I'm going to rearrange these. Yep. Yeah, that feels good. So with this full moon, you're being invited to break some negative habits, as well as, breaking those habits is going to create some deep healing for you. And sometimes the negative habits that we have can be really small. Like this doesn't feel like something that is a super heavy lift. This could be something as simple as, trying not to be late, that's, I feel like that's something that I struggle with. Like, what is time? What is time? It's not real. It's a construct that we made up that we don't need, except for everything is based on time, right? And so I feel like I always feel really bad when I'm like late for things like appointments, because I picked that time for the appointment. And so like, why am I picked this time. I had the choice to pick the time and I'm still not on time. So what I do now is I, instead of just calculating in the amount of time it takes me to drive somewhere, I add 15 minutes onto that because I know that I don't have a good, I feel like saying that I don't have a good sense of time is not, that doesn't, that's not accurate, right? I think I have more time than I do. And so because of that, I end up leaving late. And so now I make myself reminders like earlier than I need to leave because future me doesn't remember that I've set this like notification earlier. Future me is just like, oh, it says that I need to leave now, but I mean, I probably have like 10 minutes, right? So I add 15 minutes on, and then what do you know? I get there like 2 or 3 minutes early. And so, that seems like a really small thing, right? It's like really easy. But like that can bring some, really big healing for you. Just making like a small change, like breaking a really small negative habit. Like maybe your negative habit is that you want to get healthier, but for some reason, you always buy ice cream that you're going to eat after dinner, and that that's not part of being healthy. So maybe your thing is that you decide like, okay, I'm going to leave. I'm not going to buy any more ice cream. Maybe you are one of those people that's really good about like not going to the grocery store hungry, and you are very aware that like it's that item that you don't add to your grocery list, but it's something that your brain's like, oh, we need that. So maybe you do a little bit of brain hacking and you put on your grocery list, do not buy any more ice cream, so that when you get to the freezer section, you're like, oh, I need frozen veggies and don't buy any more ice. Okay, got it. And then your grocery store future self is like, hey, we got to get ice cream. No, we don't. List says no more ice cream. Like, okay. But this small change, this small habit that you're going to break is going to bring really massive healing. And so it feels massive because we can see like it kind of looks like angel wings, but really I feel like it's this shedding, right? Because we've got these big wings here and these other wings here, and it's like she's being cracked open, and it's all this light that's just kind of fleshing out. And so I feel like you breaking this one small bad habit is the straw that breaks the camel's back on cracking open healing around something that you've been really trying to, like, a bigger thing you've been trying to heal and move past for a really long time. And for you, mentally, your brain says that they are not related, but energetically they are. And so that's why this kind of big healing is going to happen, because there's some kind of energetic tie between a thing that deep healing needs to happen around and like this kind of small bad habit that you have. And so because they're energetically like interlinked, once you are able to disconnect from that small energy, it kind of pops the lock open. So it's almost like, when you have a key, instead of like a really big padlock, it's like the size of the key doesn't determine like how quickly the lock gets open. Like the key opens the lock. Like that's it has to do with the mechanism. It has to do with the unlocking, the detaching, not the size of the key. So I hope that makes sense. And once you're able to heal from, this big thing, you're going to be able to step into it's like, it feels like a new timeline. Like you're not even like closing a chapter on something. Like it's not even like a pivot. Like I don't know how to explain it. Like you're walking through this portal into something totally new, and that is going to be like different than anything that you've ever done. It's not going to feel different for you. It's going to look very different from the outside. And that doesn't have anything to do with you, right? That like people are going to perceive you the way that they perceive you, but the reminder is that you're much stronger than you think that you are. So like when you're doing these things that like look so different than the old you, and you get feedback from people or unsolicited advice or even criticism, like just to remember like that this is part of your soul path. Like this is something that doesn't feel really massive and weird and crazy to you, and that this is your life. So like you get to decide what it is that you do and what you don't do. And just because it's uncomfortable for other people doesn't need to like factor into like what you're doing, because it feels like whatever this new thing you're stepping into is, like you're very secure about it. Like it feels very aligned. It you know that you're capable of it, and that like it just feels good. Like it feels like it I can feel it in my heart. Like it feels very like in my heart space, it feels like very open. Like it feels very expansive. And I think that these two cards are like, these are just kind of preemptive. They're encouragement, but like preemptive reminders to you that like in the time that like after you have this healing, the healing is going to happen like with the full moon. It's going to be triggered by some full moon energy. It's not necessarily going to happen on the 24th, but I do feel like going into March, this is the energy of March. So you're kind of wrapping things up with the full moon in February. But as you're moving into these new things, like these two are like these preemptive encouragements, preemptive reminders that like when people feel like you're doing something that's like so different from you, that you're actually not, that like this is more authentic and more in alignment with who you are than this was. And that you can be strong in yourself and your decisions. Like be strong in your knowing that you're following divine guidance. And so I feel like it might be beneficial for you to like tap in with like some goddess energy. So if you want to like learn about Venus, if you want to learn about Aphrodite, like if you want to learn about Sekhmet, like any goddess energy that feels good to you, I feel like that's something that's going to be really encouraging and beneficial for you to connect with, as almost like as a form of like divine support, because there are going to be people around you that are like, what are you doing? That's so weird. Like, why are you doing that? And like, that's not who you are. And like, who are you? And you know that this is very much who you are now. And that they knew you like this kind of wounded, unhealed part of you. And that they have expectations for you to be this. And that's not really your problem. That like, the people that want to connect with us, like if there are conditions to their connection with us, like if the connection that they forge with us is conditional on us being this, and they can't accept you as this, then it's not really a healthy, authentic connection. And this Aquarius energy, Aquarius rules, acquaintances and friendships. Aquarius also rules authenticity and freedom. So there's big kind of Aquarius themes coming up for you. If you are like getting into astrology, like, or if you are into astrology, like just kind of reading a little bit more about like Pluto and Aquarius, I think that energy is going to be really helpful for you. I want to say the Aquarius, birthstone is amethyst, and we have a lot of that purple energy here. So that might be a crystal that's really helpful for you, or even just like wearing purple, looking at purple, lavenders, kind of focusing a little bit on your crown chakra. Also, like just kind of the top of the head, like if you have one of those weird like scalp massager things, like if you want to use that, or even if like you have some oils or something, or even just in the shower, if you want to take a little bit of extra time and like massage your scalp, I feel like that's really going to be beneficial and helpful to you. So yeah, these are the oracle cards that have come up. So let's take a look at your tarot cards and see what we have. Okay. Interesting. Okay. So we have this Queen of Wands energy. This is Pele, which is the kind of equivalent of Kali Ma. So this is the goddess of destruction. So we see this like volcano in the background. To me, it's very much like Pluto energy, which is destruction for the purpose of rebirth. And so there's a video, gosh, I want to say it's like from the Disney movie Fantasia, and I can't remember if it's the original one or like a newer version, but it's essentially like a video of like a forest fire, which is very similar to this like volcano energy, but essentially like the fire wipes everything out in the forest. All the animals are running away to get away from the fire, and it's just like ash, and it's black because everything's burnt down. And over the course of like time, these little, seeds start to like grow, and it's like little grass and flowers, and the animals start to come back and the trees regrow. And so that's very much this like Kali Ma Pele energy, like this really kind of big destructive force that comes through, that feels kind of scary and hard. And after the quiet, time post-destruction, like things start to grow again, and everything kind of comes back into like a new space, right? That the animals return. Like the animals aren't afraid of the forest, like they're afraid of the fire. And so it almost feels like there was some situation that happened that you needed healing around. And like once you become this stronger version of yourself, like once you're able to show up as your authentic self, away from like the way that you were before, like you're going to be able to revisit some kind of situation, event, like it's not necessarily the same one that caused the wounding, but it looks similar. So for some of you, like this could even be like, I don't know, like maybe a habit, right? Let's say that like, or not a habit, but like an activity where like, let's say you went skiing and then you fell and you broke your leg and it took time to heal. And then you started like working out again and you're like, I'm going to ski again. And people are like, you are crazy. Like you had such a terrible break and that was traumatic. And you said you'd never do it again. And because you have been able to care for yourself and like strengthen yourself, and you remember why you enjoyed doing it, and you realize that like the reason you stopped skiing was because it was scary to break your leg, because that was the first time you ever broke your leg. And like that's the first time you ever broke anything, and you were scared because you were by yourself, and like all these circumstances. But now that you've healed, like you understand that like this thing happened for you to see like how strong and capable you are. And also like you remember how fun it was, and also that like you were teaching yourself. So maybe this time we get some lessons, right? And so like revisiting that. So deciding that like, okay, I'm going to take some ski lessons and I'm going to learn to do this the right way. And I really enjoyed it and I want to enjoy that thing again. And so I love that. I love it. This Eight of Wands, in the upright, Eight of Wands is very fast moving energy. In the reverse, it's an intentional slowdown. So instead of, just to go back to the ski analogy, instead of just saying, I'm going to buy some skis and hop on out there, it can't be that hard. Now we go back and we're like, let me take some lessons. I'm going to start at the bunny slope. And like, if I am really good and I can master all the basic skills of like, stopping, braking, turning, going, stopping, whatever, then I'll move up to the next slope. But like I'm not in a hurry to get to like the black diamond, like I will get there in time. And that this kind of fear, because this very much feels like fear, is you're aware that it's coming from other people, right? That like other people are projecting onto you their own fears around this thing that happened for you, and that like they have the best intentions, but also, this is harsh. They have the best intentions, but also they had no part in your healing, and they really like weren't that supportive when you had your leg break, right? Like they didn't come visit you in the hospital. They didn't offer to bring you any meals. Maybe they sent a couple text messages like, "Hey, how are you doing? You okay? Great." But like they weren't really there. So like they don't really have any place to say that you should or shouldn't be doing something, because it's like, if you're so worried about me skiing and you're so worried about me breaking my leg, like where were you when I was by myself and my leg was broken? Like your fear is about you, it's not about me. But your fear also is not about how much you care about me. And I think that sometimes people will project their fear onto other people because they don't realize how much they're run by their own fear. It's like it just spills out of them. And so with this Queen of Swords, like you can see she's pretty serious. She's got her knife up. The Queen of Swords can be pretty cold and calculated with her words. She can have kind of a sharp tongue. I feel like in the reverse, like you are very intentional with how you use your words, right? So you might not say to them that like, I don't really care about what you think of me skiing because when I broke my leg, you weren't there. What you might say instead is that I can tell that you're really scared for me, and I'm gonna be okay. I know what I'm doing, because I think sometimes what can be really, how do I say this? What can be really empowering for us to do is when we can see that someone is projecting stuff onto us, we can call it out in a very gentle way and kick it right back to them. So, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're skiing. Like, what if you break your leg again? Like, this is not a good idea. And, like I said, like you can say, hey, I can sense that you're scared for me, but I'm going to be okay. And so what you're doing is saying that like, I see your fear and I give it back to you. I don't need your fear. I'm not going to feed into it. I don't receive that. No, thank you. And so when we say like, hey, I can tell you're really fearful around this, but I'm going to be fine. Like what we're saying, we're essentially calling them out for projecting their fear onto us without saying like, hey, don't put your shit on me. Because Queen of Swords upright would say, like, I don't have time for people projecting their fear on me. Queen of Swords in reverse she's a little gentler, but she's still very direct of like, I can tell that you're scared, but I'm going to be fine. And I do love that this kind of lines up with the Sekhmet, right? Like the be strong. This Three of Coins in reverse. This card is about mastery and collaboration, right? And so with this in the reverse, like what it feels like is that this thing that you're coming back to, it's for the purpose of overcoming it and kind of mastering it. Not necessarily like, to go back to the skiing example, you're not going to become a ski instructor, but what you are going to do is you're going to master and overcome like fear running your life, and so I feel like with these two little kind of, monster demon creatures, in the background, like she's got her eyes closed and she's just drumming away, having her, doing her music, like having a good time, living her little high vibe life. And these things are looming in the background. And she's like, no, I'm not gonna look at you. I don't have time for this. I have Joy and my drums to play, and like if you guys want to drum too, you can do it back there, but like I'm not including you. I'm not inviting you. I'm not collaborating with this fear anymore. I'm done letting fear rule my life and dictate what I do and make decisions for me. So it feels like this small breaking this one small habit is going to, kick off like this really intense healing. It's going to shift you into a new version of yourself, like a much more like stable, independent, secure version of yourself. Not to say that you were insecure before, but like this is I feel like you were a young tree that had been like growing its roots, like really kind of rooting itself deep into the ground. And with this healing, what's happening is like the trunk and the branches, everything's getting so much bigger. Like once you're able to heal, that you're just kind of growing into this giant redwood tree, like just very secure, know who you are. Like you're totally okay with not being an oak tree. Like that you're a redwood, and that like there's other redwoods around you, and like who you are, and you don't need to be a rose or an oak tree. Like you're secure, you're becoming very secure in who you are and accepting of who you are. And that like in part of this development of like securing yourself, like becoming more stable in yourself, you're going to go through revisiting something, revisiting the thing that caused the wounding, so that you can experience all of this to understand that you have gotten to a place that fear doesn't rule your life. Fear doesn't dictate the decisions that you make. That like I don't even feel like an up leveling is the right word. Like this is a really significant like life lesson that you're coming through, that's getting kicked off in this full moon in Virgo. Yeah, for some reason like this feels like a 2-year process. Like from start to finish, like this February is wrapping up the breaking of the habit and the start of the healing, but like this kind of unfolding and like really like this really strong establishment and deep knowing of yourself and deep acceptance of yourself, like this is happening over the next 2 years. And so I feel like this is kind of just something that's going to be running in the background. Lots of self-love that's developing, like lots of heart energy, like love energy that's expanding. But yeah, this is just very, really lovely. I feel like for those of you that are younger, maybe like early 20s, like this is maybe even mid 20s, like this is really kind of a transition into adulthood. Not to say that you weren't an adult before, but like this is really like at the end of this 2 years, like you're a different person, right? So it's like at the end of this 2 years, you're going to be able to reflect on who you were at the start of this and be like, wow, like I've grown so much, which is really, I feel like, which is really beautiful, because there's a deep kind of reverence and love for yourself in that reflecting back energy. Trying to think of when the full moon in Aquarius will be, because that'll be in Leo season, so probably mid to late August. But if you want to Google full moon in Aquarius, like that might be a significant time for you. Like there might be some significant shifts that happen where you start to realize that you're very like, it feels like that around that full moon in Aquarius is going to be the time that like people kind of start to like, hey, what happened to you? Like you've changed so much, like what's going on? And so that might be the time that you want to kind of work more with like, I keep wanting to say aquamarine, which is not the right thing. Amethyst. Aquamarine might be something significant for you too, because we have like that blue color in here, but a lot of purple with the amethyst. But that might be the time you want to work with like crystals and like goddesses and things like that, just for extra support. Because it feels like that's the time when like people are going to start to see, like, you're really going to be comfortable in showing up as you really are, showing up in this new version of you. But I think that's also going to be the time that people are like, oh, what's going on? And like, that's not about you. You're here to live your highest, best timeline, and their discomfort is really about them. So not about you, because you got big things to do, like no longer being ruled by fear. Which is beautiful. So group number 3, this has been your reading. So if you enjoyed it, I would love it if you would like and subscribe. I want to say thank you so much for letting me read cards for you. I feel like this was just really a beautiful reading, like just very powerful. I feel like I resonate with this because I kind of went through this same thing in like 2018, when I really realized that like I wasn't living as my authentic self, and I really wanted to figure out who I authentically was. And I was in my late 30s. So I feel like that's, if you're younger or older, I feel like time is just a construct, like age doesn't matter. But yeah, it started very small, right? Where it was like, I want to be more authentic. And I didn't know what that meant. And so it was like over the course of like, for me, it was like 3 or 4 years that it took me. You're much quicker than I am. But it took me a while to really kind of embrace like, or to identify like what authenticity was for me and how to be authentic, and like doing these small things that really did trigger some stuff with other people. Like I started bringing, I was in the military still, and I started bringing oracle cards to work, and I just had them on my desk. I wasn't reading for people, just for me. And they were, Gabby Bernstein, The Universe Has Got Your Back cards. So like not pictures, just like words, and like just very positive, just kind of messages for me to focus on. And I remember having one person that was like a couple levels above me, and they saw that I had a deck of cards on my desk, and they were like, whoa, I do not mess with that. Like he wouldn't even come up to the desk to talk to me. Like I had to leave my desk to go talk to him. Like that's how afraid of these cards that he was, you know. And I don't know his circumstances, you know. He was born and raised in Louisiana, so maybe had some first-hand, second-hand, third-hand experiences with cards that made him kind of skittish. But like there was part of me that was like, I shouldn't have these cards here, and like, what am I doing? Why am I being like this? And then this other more authentic part of me was like, no, like if it bothers you that I have positive messages on my desk, that's a you problem. That is not a me problem. I'm not breaking any regulations. I'm not offending anybody. It's not hindering my ability to do my job. I'm just trying to figure out how to be my most authentic self within this structure that values conformity over everything. So it was a weird time. So thank you for letting me share that little anecdote. But I am here with you. So if I can give you any support in being authentic and just figuring out how to identify, or just kind of be okay with not allowing other people's perceptions of what you do to shift you away from your authenticity, I am happy to provide you that encouragement. So yeah, again, thank you for letting me read cards for you. And I hope you have an amazing full moon, and I will see you later. Bye. Hello, group number 4. So if you chose this Scorpio, Astro Dice, and this full moon in Gemini, the answers are coming card. This is your reading. So I have tarot cards for you from the Osho Zen Tarot, as well as some oracle cards. So let's look at this Starseed Oracle. The Seas of Mintaka. Seeing potential, bringing unconsciousness to light. Next is this Goddess Guidance card, Ishtar Boundaries. Love yourself enough to say no to others' demands on your time and energy. Next is this Wisdom of Healing card, Become Better. And the lesson is discover one thing that would make you better and more empowered at what you do and who you are, and make it a part of your routine. If this is difficult, identify why becoming better is something you wouldn't want to do. Your goal is to recognize how and why you sabotage your empowerment. Interesting. If this is difficult, identify why becoming better is something you wouldn't want to do. I don't know why that's standing out to me. And then got this second Moonology card, which is for full moon in Cancer. Personal issue reaches resolution. Okay. Interesting. I'm just looking at these. I feel like there's like an order. Like, I feel like these don't come out in order, and that sometimes I need to put them in order. I feel like sorry, bear with me. Okay. I feel like this is the order. This is a timeline. So Scorpio energy, Scorpio rules like merging, like connecting. So it also rules like sex and intimacy, as well as like death and rebirth, like other people's money, taxes, loans. So it feels like there's something with like somebody else's energy that is like affecting you. There's some kind of external something that's affecting you. And it feels like there's something that you're not clear on, and I'm having a hard time getting clear on this too. And so I think that's kind of I'm picking up on like the energy of the situation. So there's something that is not clear, and there's something that's like, it's very deep. Scorpio's very deep. Scorpio's very deep water, like deep, deep, deep ocean. And so it kind of feels like there's some, it feels like entanglement, enmeshment. Like, I don't know if this is a relationship thing. I don't know if you're having a hard time letting go, like moving on, releasing. If there's if there's a little bit of like vengeance, revenge energy, I don't know. But there's something, you're gonna get clarity on something from like during this full moon. And so I feel like this is how you're coming into the energy. Like before the full moon, your eyes are closed, you can't really see what's happening. And then during the full moon, something's gonna get illuminated. And it really feels like over the last couple of days of the month, right? So the full moon is on the 24th. There's only 28 days this month because it is a leap year. Yes, no, 29 because it's a leap year. And so like over those next 5 days, so like maybe a week after the full moon, like you're going to be able to see, you're going to get clarity. You're going to see what it is that you needed to see. Like the answers are coming. And there's some kind of answers that you have been, I don't know if you've been asking for them, if you've been waiting for them, if you've been demanding them, but it feels like there was an ask that happened and it's been a long time, you know, like that you have just been waiting. And it's not like, it wasn't like you asked and then they said, hey, I'll get back to you in 2 weeks. And you're like, that's fine, I'll just wait. Like that this is not that clear. It's like you have a conversation and you're making an ask and they kind of fumble around it, and then they give a little bit of what you've asked for, but they don't give all of it. And it's like, this is the cycle that's been happening, right? So like this in a relationship, this could look like, hey, like this has been happening and I really need it to change. And they're like, oh yeah, I'm working on it. I did this and this. But then, you're like, okay, so they need time to change. But then they end up doing the same thing that you asked them not to do. And then you have the conversation and then they're like, oh yeah, I'm doing this. I'm working on it. And it's like, this cycle just repeats, right? There's so many iterations of this cycle. And it feels like, I don't think that you're going to get the answer from them. I don't think that it's going to, for this relationship example, I don't think it's going to be like, hey, I need you to change. And they're going to be like, you know what? I don't want to, and I can't. So just take it or leave it. Like they're not direct. They're not able to be direct like that with you. I think that, there's been a lot of deep introspection, and something is going to happen, or over the course of the next week or two, where you're just going to see. It's going to be like the full moon illuminates, like energetically, it shines a light on things. It brings a light to the dark, right? Because like if you go outside during a full moon, like it could be midnight, but it's like, there's like this kind of weird hazy light. Like the moon does light things up. It's just not as clearly as the sun. And so something's going to happen over the next 2 weeks where you're going to get that clarity. You're going to be able to see the truth of something. And I feel like that's going to require you to put some boundaries up around people, activities, different things. Because what you're going to see is that like this thing that you're getting clarity on is not for your highest good, and that you have to make some changes to protect your time, energy, money, and to really boundary. Yeah, you have to really boundary your time, energy, money from whatever that chaos was. It almost feels like if you were a house, you told people, yeah, just come and go as you please. And then over the course of time, it's like, hey, you guys have to close the door when you come in because there's bugs coming in, and I found a raccoon. Like, what is happening? And like the people there are like, oh yeah, we'll do that. We're so sorry. We forgot. But then they just like kept forgetting. So now it's like you have a whole family of raccoons living in your house. Like, I can't, so like boundaries can be like, as small as just like locking that door, where it's like, it's not that I don't want you to come over. I would love for you to come over. I just don't want you to walk right in. Or putting boundaries in place of like, hey, I know that we like normally just, kind of like FaceTime whenever on a Sunday, but like I'm starting to take a yoga class on Sundays. So like if you can just text me before you call, because, it's a hot yoga class, and like when I get home, I need a shower. I also need to eat. So, I just can't FaceTime like right away if I'm about to get in the shower. So I just need a little bit more coordination, right? Boundaries aren't always like a hard no. Like sometimes boundaries are like, hey, can we shift the way that we're doing things? And then with this seeing potential, it's really like the illumination part of it, like bringing consciousness to light. I think that like anytime we make changes to care for ourselves, the way that other people react to those changes really sheds light and gives us clarity on who they are as a person, right? Because I think that, we can have people that like we put those boundaries up with, where we're like, like the hot yoga example, and they're like, oh, I love that. Like, that's so awesome, because I know how much you love yoga, and I know how hard it's been for you to find a place that you really like. So I am so glad that you found a place that you love. And like, yeah, I'll totally just text you. Or like, do you want to FaceTime on Saturday instead? Or like, do you want to schedule something? Is it easier if we just schedule something? Because you said your yoga class is the same time. So like, instead of, like worrying about me rushing you, like maybe do you want to, if your yoga class is at 10 in the morning, do you want to FaceTime at 3 so you have time to like shower and rest and eat and all those things? And you're like, yeah, yes, thank you for supporting my change. Just like there can be other people that are like, what do you mean you want me to text you first? Like, what kind of friendship is this? Like, this is we've never done this before. Like, why are you being weird? Because it's beneficial to them to not have to like coordinate with you. It's beneficial for them to just call you whenever they want and disregard anything else that you have going on, because they're selfish jerks. Or maybe they just have a lot going on too and they can't, like maybe they just, what is time? But I feel like when we put boundaries in place, people's reactions to those boundaries show us, they give us a little bit of insight into like how they feel about us, what their character is, like what the dynamic of the relationship is, and like whether we want to go forward or not. Because a lot of times, like when people are resentful or resistant of our boundaries, it's because they're upset that it's not serving them. And that's very telling. For this become better card, I feel like I appreciate that better is in quotations, because I feel like better is kind of just like subjective, like, because I feel like saying that you need to become better is kind of saying that like you aren't good enough as you are, and I don't like that, but I have good enough worth issues myself. I feel like this is really about figuring out like what you want to improve in your life, right? Because I feel like, like that better thing is very subjective, and that the world tells us all these ways that we can become better, that really have nothing to do with our value as a person. I feel like this is about like, what do you want to improve or like learn more deeply about yourself, or like shift or grow or change, maybe. I feel like these two are connected. I feel like there's something about boundaries. It might be that like really implementing your boundaries makes you feel a lot better about yourself. It makes you feel better in general, because you're not giving away your time, energy, money to people that can't be direct with you. But I feel like this issue is going to come to a resolution, right? And so this is full moon in Gemini. This is full moon in Cancer. Gemini immediately follows Cancer. And so the full moon cycle is about 28, 30 days. So I feel like whatever this issue is, like this thing that you have no clarity on, that you're going to get clarity on like over the next week or two. I feel like when you get to April, because this will kind of, I feel like this is going to kick off in March, and March is a longer month, 31 days. Like I feel like when you get to the beginning of April, like you will have moved past all this stuff. This whole shift, like resolving this thing, as well as like shifting into like living, implementing like your own boundaries to care for yourself. Like it's almost like this is a full cycle. I hope that makes sense. Yeah. That this is kind of almost, instead of just like a full moon reading, this is really like the next 30 days, the next month reading for you. So let's take a look at your tarot. Let's see what we have here. Okay. So, yeah. So this first card that we have is the Thunderbolt card. It's the equivalent of the Tower in tarot. And so we can see that like there's kind of some upheaval, like a lot of lightning, some fire, these people falling out. But in the background, the Tower is this person, right? So really, to me, what this feels like is you're I was going to say your persona, but that's not it. Like this old version of you is falling away, burning down, transmuting. So getting clarity on whatever the situation is, it's going to create a really positive change in you. Especially with this rebirth card underneath this boundaries card. Like this card is it, the message behind it is really about like evolution, like that we evolve, like that we can go through things that keep us kind of like dull and stagnant and lazy, and then we kind of have this anger that we go through, and then we kind of finally elevate into this higher, lighter energy. And so I feel like this old version of you is kind of dying away. It's like a skin that's being shed. It's like it almost feels like the same as like when you kind of clean out your closet, or when you're looking through your closet, maybe the seasons change. So you're kind of looking, it's after winter and springtime comes and you're looking for your springtime clothes, and you find something in your closet that is so synonymous with like who you were during a really specific period of time, and you are not that person anymore. And it's like, oh, I have to give this away. Like there's nothing wrong with this, but like that's not who I am anymore. Like this is what this tower moment feels like. It's very gentle. Sometimes tower moments can be kind of chaotic for you. This is very much internal, especially with this like person figure in here and like the fire being on the inside. Like this is just a very internal realization for you that like when you see the truth about whatever this situation, relationship, person, thing is, you know, it's almost like you taking that dress or that suit or that whatever t-shirt out of your closet and looking at it like, oh yeah, this isn't me anymore, and like I need to donate this, you know, and like kind of energetically removing it and letting it go. You know, because there's a new version of you that is ready to be born, to come out, to rise up. And again, with this like new vision card, right? We have this, I mean, come on, like tear it down, you know, rebirth it, new vision. This card, I feel like this energy is like a rediscovery of who you are, right? Like learning that, like, you know, before you were kind of crawling, that you kept yourself really low, you know, like just don't make any problems, just be quiet, just stay small. And really like the essence of you, the authentic you, is like this really vibrant, you know, there's this wings and shapes and all this color, like that you kept yourself small for everybody else, but really like this is the authentic you, that like who you are is like this really bright, vibrant, you have a lot of vitality to you. Like you have a lot of energy, like you're very creative, like you make things happen, like you're I don't think this is a word, like you're a catalyzer, where you, like an alchemist, right? Like you can take two things that don't make sense together and you make something out of them, you know, like alchemizing like lead into gold. And that like when you allow this new version of yourself to come out, what it does is it creates this reset. And so this no thingness card is it makes me think of the death card, but in the tarot, 5 is the Hierophant, which is very interesting because the Hierophant is like the wise elder. And so this is like, I feel like this is soul evolution for you in this lifetime, that like if you believe in reincarnation, like you came back here for your soul to go through something really significant and evolutionary, that like as a human you could only evolve in human form. Like the lesson that you wanted to learn, you could only do it in a human form. And like your human brain doesn't realize that this is like a really big deal, but for your soul this is super significant. Like for your soul this is maybe something you've been working on for like lifetimes. And this no thingness talks about before there is something, there's nothing, right? Before anything exists, there's a void. And so the way that I kind of try to explain it is that like before you or I existed, there was nothing, right? There was a sperm and an egg, but there was no us, right? That like the essence of us was no thing, because until the sperm and the egg come together and fertilize a thing into being, there is no thingness. So this is very like philosophical, kind of etheric, energetic, but I think that sometimes like this black box of nothingness feels really scary to people. And I think sometimes like the darkness of us feels like loss because it feels like absence. And we only understand absence as having had something there and having it be taken away. But we don't ever think of it in the converse sense where it's like before anything exists, there is nothing. And so that's the message of this card. Like that's what this big reset is that like, you know, in this human experience that you're having, this lesson that you're having, like your soul is evolving and yes, in this lifetime, like you are becoming a different person. You're shifting, growing, like you are evolving as a person, but on a soul level, like this is so significant that I don't know how else to say it besides like wiping the slate clean. It's essentially like your soul is being reborn and like I feel like my brain can't find an analogy to make it make sense because it's not sensical. Like it's energy and like time, space, quantum, like it's not, it's not like skin and fake nails and, and paper cards and, yeah, but like this soul evolution that's happening, it's this almost like cosmic reset. And like your soul is in this evolution of your soul, it's like disappearing and like being rebirthed as something else. And I say that because of this Fool card. So this Fool card is the soul, right? But after this no thingness card, like there's it. Yeah, it's like this cosmic rebirth. I wish there was like words to explain it. I hope it makes sense. Like I feel like I don't normally read like in this like super spiritual way, but that it's just very strong, you know, because there's this parallel thing of like you as a human being kind of going through this evolution, but like this human evolution, like this life change that you're having, like this timeline shift, this quantum shift for you as the human being who's watching this is tied into this like soul evolution. Like, and energy doesn't die, right? Like our souls don't die. Energy doesn't end, it transmutes. And so it almost feels like this cosmic reset, this rebirth feels like if you held a firework in one hand and then you looked at fireworks exploding in the sky, right? Where it's like, okay, there's this tangible part, like this tangible piece of firework. And like, I understand that people put like gunpowder and phosphorus and color and whatever they put in fireworks to make them fireworks. But for this to become that, like, I understand it, I can comprehend it, but it's like there's some really kind of crazy bananas like magic to it, right? And so it almost feels like that's what's happening to your soul, is it's going from being the firework to being the actual physical firework to being the kind of shimmery sparkles in the sky that dissolve, where it's like we can comprehend that one thing leads, you know, like the firework gets lit on fire and then there's an explosion and then the chemicals do their thing and then we see something magical and then it's done. But it's like your soul is going from the firework to the sparkling stuff to a totally new thing. I hope that makes sense. Like this has got to be one of the weirdest readings that I've ever done. But I feel like if this Scorpio energy resonates you, then you believe in reincarnation. You're deeply spiritual. Like this is not super weird to you. I feel like you get it, but I also realize that like this is not like this. You're probably not having a conversation with someone about like, oh, I got this tarot reading and they said that my soul's gonna disappear and having a cosmic reset. Or maybe you do. I hope you have people like that around you, because I feel like I have one or two, but these are not the conversations we have every day. But yeah, in this tangible human skin suit that you are in right now, you're going through, like, over the next month, like, you're going through the ending of, like, some kind of relationship or connection, excuse me, that is leading you to up level as a person, right? To value yourself more, to like change the things that you do to care for yourself. And on a soul level, like, it is also at the same time, it's like, what's it called? Is it string theory? Where there's like this concept that like there are multiple versions of us that are existing at the same time, but they're living out different timelines. It's almost like it feels like this is the 3D and this is like the 5D, 12D outer space string theory, like soul progression of things. That it's almost like as this is happening to you in the 3D, in this physical form, on a soul level, it's happening at the same time. And the both of these outcomes result in a significant change happening. And they're both happening at the same time. But when we compare the two, like, they couldn't be more kind of distinct, right? It's almost like, I was going to say a moissanite and a diamond. Like, a moissanite is a man-made diamond, and a diamond, you know, is like made from pressure and being in a piece of coal. And that the end result is like you have a sparkly piece of jewelry, but like the way that they happened, the energetics behind, the magnitude behind the journey is very different. And so, you know, with this Fool card and the resolution, like, yes, your soul is starting a new, it's had a cosmic reset, but also for you, like, whatever this was, this will not ever happen for you again. Like, this lesson, this karmic lesson, this lesson to be learned, this is completed. Like, this person, circumstance, relationship, whatever this thing was that you're really cloudy on, like, you're closing that out. You will no longer allow that energy into your life. You'll no longer deal with circumstances or people like that. So I feel like, you know, for your human self, like, it's for your soul, you know, the soul of you, like, this is really significant. But also for like your human self, this is very significant too, because whether you've had a pattern of these kinds of connections or situations, like, even if you haven't, like, this isn't like this kind of cloudy, confused energy. Nobody wants to be in that. No, it's not. It's extremely, like, unpleasant and hard, and it causes a lot of emotional turmoil. And so you, after, you know, like, once you gain this clarity, about a month later, you know, like, you'll have wrapped up this lesson. I was going to say license to be a baddie, which is what you are. You'll have wrapped up this lesson. You'll have completed this, and like, it won't be something that you do again, because the skills that you're developing, like the habits you're developing, the boundaries, the focusing on like what is best for you and how you want to have a better life and just making better choices for you, you know, becoming much more aware of things like that, that is going to shift how you live your life moving forward. So, group number 4, this has been your full moon reading. So I hope you enjoyed it. This, like I said, this has been one of the weirder readings that I've done, but also like super magical. So yeah, I hope you loved it. I really enjoyed it. But I just want to say thank you so much for letting me read cards for you. And I am wishing you an amazing full moon. And just over the course of like this next 30 days, like, just if you can just be, you know, just kinder to yourself, like maybe this water here and the blue, like maybe get around some water. You know, maybe if you can't get near water, maybe listening to like some water sounds. Like, if you like to bathe or do anything with water, like taking longer showers, if you have the luxury and the time of doing that. But yeah, water might be kind of healing for you. Stay hydrated. that might just be it. But yeah, thank you so much for letting me read for you, and thank you for watching, and I am wishing you an amazing full moon, and I will see you later. Bye.